Um, awesome. Yeah, we're gonna get started. So welcome. Welcome to our BASW Information Session tonight. This is the first one of the year, so I'm excited and welcome. Okay, just an introduction before we start. My name is Shyla. I use she, her pronouns, and I am the admissions and outreach specialist at our UW School of Social Work. I'm also a BASW alum, so I went through this program at UW Seattle. I was a student in 2019 through 2021, so a few years ago. And just a little bit about me. I'm from Kent, Washington. So if anyone here is from Kent or from Kent Meridian, that's where I grew up and went to school. I'm a first generation college student, so I was the first in my family to graduate from college and have a degree, like at least in my immediate family. Um, like I said, I'm an alum of the program, and I transferred to UW from Green River College. My freshman year, I went to Central Washington University in Ellensburg, so I've been to a few schools and have experienced the transfer process myself. And I'm very passionate about making higher education accessible to folks, and that's why I'm here. Um, I strongly believe in social work as a great method or a great lens in education, and making it more accessible, especially to underrepresented folks. So that's a little bit about me, and welcome to those who are just joining. And before we get into it further, I do want to do a land acknowledgement. At the UW, if you're unfamiliar with the land acknowledgement, this is a process we try to streamline in our events and elsewhere, to acknowledge whose land we are originally on as a university and as an individual. So I'm just going to read this directly, and if you have questions, feel free to let me know. So UW Seattle's campus is situated on the ancestral homeland of the Duwamish people, the first people of Seattle. The University of Washington acknowledges the past, present, and future of the Coast Salish peoples of this land, the land which touches the shared waters of all tribes and bands within the Suquamish, Tulalip, and Muckleshoot nations. We remember that our country is built on the labor of enslaved people who were kidnapped and brought to the U.S. from the African continent, and recognize the continued contribution of their survivors. We also acknowledge all immigrant labor, including voluntary, involuntary, trafficked, forced, and undocumented peoples who contribute to the building of this country and continue to serve within our labor force. We also acknowledge all unpaid caregiving labor. So this is the land and labor acknowledgement, acknowledging both the land that we are situated on and the labor that has gone into this university, especially by underrepresented folk. And we encourage you to go beyond land acknowledgements and labor acknowledgements into learning about whose land you're on. A good way to start is by downloading the Native Land app, and you can type in your zip code and learn about whose land you are situated on and who are the first people of that land. You can do that nationwide, so that's a good way to start learning. Okay, and I think it looks like a lot of people are here. And also, just as a heads up, I'm logging in from Seattle. My lamp just flickered a little bit. I know there's supposed to be like a bomb cyclone thing happening. I don't know the extent of that. I know it's windy outside. So if you need to log off, obviously, please take care of yourselves. And if for whatever reason, this Zoom suddenly shuts off, that would be why. It seems pretty stable right now. My internet's fine, but just as a heads up, if something like that happens, if I'm able to, I'll restart the call. But if not, I'll reach out to you all individually and we can connect and reschedule. So just as a heads up in case anything like that happens. Okay. So next, I just want to do a brief little icebreaker just to know who's here. If folks want to just go around, you don't have to, you can either drop this in the chat or unmute. I'm curious, obviously I can see your names, but your name and pronouns and something you're hoping to learn about today. Any question, like specific topics you want to learn about, or something that brings you here today, like what makes you interested in social work. I would love to know just to help inform this presentation. I can customize it to what you want to know, and get to know everyone who's here. Awesome. We got some folks logging in from Seattle. Thanks for putting the native land thing in the chat. Yeah, can folks drop their intros in the chat? That would be great. Or if anyone wants to unmute, feel free.
Hi, can I unmute just because I'm on my phone?
Yeah.
My name is Asia. I use she, her pronouns. I'm interested in social work because it's been a dream of mine since a kid. So I'm finally pursuing that years after when I actually went to college originally. So I'm really excited. The main thing I am interested in today as a potential transfer student is the fact that language requirements, I actually don't have any. I know there's a full year required, but I'm curious if people have gotten accepted into the program and were able to finish that while in the program. So that's my biggest curiosity today.
Awesome. Thank you, Asia. I'm so excited that you're this close to your dreams of social work. And short answer is yes to your question, but we will get into the logistics too with the program. That way you'll have more context. But yes, you don't have to have a language requirement before. Thanks, Sarah, in the chat. Hoping to learn about the process. Thank you, Melissa, in the chat. Looks like a lot of people just interested in learning more. Dustin wants to know about the transfer process. We'll definitely cover that. Yeah, a lot of admissions process. Awesome. Thank you all. And continue to if you haven't yet, feel free to drop your intro in the chat. And I'll look through those. And then throughout the presentation too, if questions come up, feel free to drop them in the chat as well. Or we'll have space at the end for questions. So whichever you prefer or are more comfortable with. Awesome. So more transfer folks. Welcome to those just joining. Great. Okay. We're definitely going to cover admissions info, program info, transfer info. So we are good to go. So for today, this is what our agenda looks like tonight. So we're going to go over our School of Social Work, who we are, a bit about our program. We'll talk about student life on campus and in our School of Social Work. We'll talk about advanced standing for those who have their eyes on a master's degree in the future. We'll just cover that briefly. And then we'll dive into the application process, what we're looking for, the materials. We'll cover funding. We'll cover the transfer process within the application stuff. And then we'll have time for questions at the end and more info about how to learn more. Okay, so this is our mission statement at the UW School of Social Work specifically. So I'll just summarize. Our School of Social Work is committed to promoting social, economic, and racial justice for all, especially underrepresented and marginalized communities. And we strive to do this by creating equitable pathways to careers in social work, especially for students from underrepresented populations, but also for everybody. So our goal, essentially, to summarize this mission statement and make it less stiff, what I like to say is that our goal is resource access. Our goal as a School of Social Work and our goal as social workers, like as a field. We'll talk about this in a little bit, but yeah, I like to think of social work as helping others, especially underrepresented folk, access resources. And that resource could be housing, that resource could be food, that resource could be education, legal services, it could be finding community, it could be many, many, many things. But ultimately, if you are interested and passionate about helping others access resources that they need to thrive, then social work is a great major for you and a great career option. A little bit more about social work and what it is it's social work is very broad. So I know that's just saying resource access is very general. But we learn about social work at the micro level is what we call it. So we'll learn about social work working with one-on-one with folks to help them access resources. So like an individual or a family. We'll learn about community social work and about policy social work. So advocating to make sure policies best serve the communities. So social work is really big picture thinking, and our curriculum and our framework for the field is really rooted in systemic issues and systemic trends, and making sure that we change the trajectory to make sure that resource access for underrepresented groups, no matter what that resource is as accessible as possible. And just to define, like, I know some folks here maybe are exploring majors. So social work, I like to define social work and think about it as resource access. And then psychology is a major or discipline that a lot of people compare us to, and there are a lot of similarities. But I like to think of psychology as being the study of the brain. In a psychology course or in a degree program, you'll learn a lot about what is going on in the brain during addiction or with a mental disorder or something. You'll be looking really introspectively into how their brain functions and treating that. Whereas in social work, while you can do similar careers, and we'll get into that, we're looking more about helping folks through resource access rather than diagnosing or looking at brain science. Like, not that social work is not science-based, we definitely do use science, obviously, in facts and research, but it's just a different approach. So if you're looking to really dive deep into like brain science and individual like behavior trends, things like that, psychology is great. But if you're really interested in more community focused or resource access and really kind of like broad options, social work is a good option. And we'll dive into this more too. But just to premise, that's what we're here for today, and that's what social work will be about if you choose to join our program. Okay, so our program at UW Seattle campus is a 2-year full-time program. I do want to distinguish that the UW Seattle campus operates pretty independently of Tacoma campus. So both campuses do have a BASW program, but this info session will cover specifically UW Seattle information. So yes, this is a major at UW. It's a 2-year full-time program. Coursework is typically during the day. So Monday through Friday, typically anywhere between like 8 a.m. and 5 p.m. You won't have like a 6 to 9 p.m. class, or anything before like 8 a.m. That would be terrible. But that's what you can expect. Classes are in person largely. You may occasionally have a hybrid option, or like an online section or something, but typically, and for the most part, it will be in-person coursework. And that in-person classes will be happening about 2 to 4 days per week, depending on the quarter. Typically in junior year, so your first year of the program, is when you would have classes on campus a little bit more. And then your senior year, you'll have what's called a practicum, which is basically like an internship. And then some of your days will be at that site versus directly on UW Seattle campus. Our program also uses a cohort model. So we'll talk about, we only admit for fall quarter each year, and it's a small cohort. So everybody moves through the BASW program together, like in a group. So you'll get to really know everybody in your class. So if you're a junior, like you'll get to know all the BASW juniors. The average class size is about 25, 26 students. And so the professor will know your name. So it's a very tight-knit community here at the School of Social Work, which is great. And if you're currently an undergrad at UW or have been to another university that's large, that'll be a big change. It's not going to be like, I don't know, like your biology 101 with 200 people by any means. Like I mentioned a little bit ago, we will use a generalist curriculum in the bachelor program. So you'll have the opportunity to learn about the history of and to gain skills in micro social work. So work with individuals and families, in meso social work, so communities, and in macro social work, so policy. So you'll have coursework and skill building in each of those areas so that when you graduate, you're prepared to work in a variety of field areas, whether you want to do casework, counseling therapy, work in a nonprofit, do group work, anything like that. You'll have had coursework that's preparing you for those different settings. A big highlight of our program is that we have a lot of hands-on learning built into the curriculum. So in your first year of the program, you'll have it's called a community service learning class, or it's kind of like a mini internship. So you'll be placed at like a local nonprofit site, one of our community partners, for about 4 to 5 hours a week. And we'll help you with placements. I'll talk about the specifics in a bit, but you'll have a mini internship your first year, and then your second year, you'll have like a full internship that's about 16 hours a week. So there's a lot of hands-on learning, and you graduate with a lot of experience, and you can apply what you're learning in the classroom to your practice at your internship or practicum, like in real time, which is great. And then, like I said, it's largely a full-time program. During your second year, a couple quarters of required coursework do dip below the 12 credit minimum for full-time enrollment. So if anyone here is pursuing like a minor or a double major, or just wants a lighter course load, or needs to have or has some outstanding graduation requirements, gen eds, anything like that, the second year of the program is a lot more flexible and able to accommodate that. Whereas during your first year in the program, the courses, it's about 12 to 16 credits a quarter. So it is a full-time course load of required social work classes. All right. So fieldwork or practicum is a huge highlight of the program, like I said. So the community service learning, again, is your mini internship. You'll be there 3 to 4 hours a week. And how placements work at our school is that our School of Social Work has over 600, I believe, community partners with different sites. So with schools, with nonprofits, things like that. And we have advisors specifically for practicum and community service learning that will meet with you. You'll be able to share your interests in the field, like if you want to work with kids, or if you want to work in schools, or if you want to work with aging adults, or if there's a specific setting or population you want to work with, we can help you. We can help place you at a site that matches those interests. And that's for both the community service learning and the practicum. And it's also a great opportunity to have both, because if let's say you come into the program and you really want to work with kids, and you have your community service learning at like a school or something, and then it wasn't what you thought it was going to be, and it's actually not what you want to do, or you didn't like it as much, then you have the opportunity your second year to pivot to a different setting for your practicum. So there's a lot of room to be able to grow and discover what you want to do in social work, and to try different things on while you're in the program and before you graduate, which is great. So like I said, practicum happens in your second year of the program. It's about 16 hours a week, so roughly 2 8-hour days a week at that site. You'll be supervised by someone with a social work degree, and you'll have a seminar coordinating with it. So you'll be able to really synthesize that information during the program, and you'll graduate between these two opportunities. You'll graduate with over 500 hours of experience to put on your resume. So it's very tangible. Our goal really is to make sure that you get the experience you need to know, or to have an idea at least of what you want to do in social work, and have some experience upon graduation for your resume. So very tangible, very hands-on. And these are also both guaranteed. So it's not that we have 20 internships and 50 people in the program by any means. Everybody gets one. It's part of the curriculum. It's like a class that you get credit for technically. So yeah, so it's a great opportunity. Yeah, and that was one of my personal highlights too during the program. Yeah, Asia.
I'm curious if with the community service learning, what if there's an instance where somebody already does about that many hours with a company in Seattle that's focused on social wellness? Is it able to be subbed, or is it just a case by case basis?
That's a great question. For practicum, I know there are some different opportunities. Like, it does need to be completed while you're enrolled in the program. So it's like if you have prior volunteer experience or work experience in the field, like prior to enrolling in the program, then that won't count towards this. But sometimes if you have a job in the field that's related to social work while you're in school, like some people are caseworkers or something, so you can double dip that with your practicum. For community service learning, though, I'm not sure if that's the same case, but I can double check.
Yeah, for
Oh, sorry.
context, it's just because I do volunteer with some lines out here. So I'm just wondering if like I'd have to double or what. But thank you.
Yeah, of course. I'll find out and I'll reach out to you. But I'm pretty sure that because the community service learning is not unique to the School of Social Work at UW. Some other programs, like I think College of Education has it, and some other degree programs. So it's like a program across the UW. So I'll have to look into it to see what they allow. for that credit.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course. Any other questions about practicum, internships, the hands-on learning kind of aspect of it? Okay, great. And again, feel free to use the chat if anything else comes up. Okay, so since this is such a tangible degree, and that's really our focus, is making sure that you are prepared to enter the workforce. These are just some sample jobs of what you can do in social work, because I know since it's so broad, it feels kind of hard to pin down like what would I actually do. If you're interested in working with individuals or families, or doing macro level work, you could be a caseworker at a nonprofit. Like I have a good friend from the program who is currently an advocate and caseworker at the YWCA, so fighting against domestic violence. You could be a school social worker. So if you're in like K through 12 and there's school counselors or school social workers, you could be doing that. You could be a counselor or therapist, either private or other. You could do a mentorship program. I know that that's like a common thing for youth. There's like youth groups or mentorship one-on-one. You could do caregiving or like hospital social work. So there's a lot of opportunities in micro social work. In meso social work, so community social work is more focused on communities and groups. So you could be facilitating like a recovery group, or you could be being a community organizer, like at your local like nonprofit or something like that. You could be a program coordinator. And then in the macro end, you're advocating for policies to better serve your community or doing some kind of leadership role. So you could be a program director, you could be a leader at a nonprofit, you could be a policy advocate or analyst. You could be working at the legislature. There's a lot of options depending on what scope you're really interested in. Was it Diane? I think I saw someone's hand up.
Yeah, sorry, I had a question. It's kind of related to the other person's question, but it's kind of different. So in the admissions, when you apply, they mostly look for like already a community experience, like volunteering experience in an applicant, or?
Yeah, that's a great question. We do value if you have prior volunteer or work experience within social services, but it's not required. So there's an opportunity on the application to include that information, and it can help boost your application, but it's not required. So if you are changing careers or you haven't had a lot of volunteer or work experience in the field, that's totally fine. Like we understand that you're coming to school to learn and to be a social worker, but if you do have that experience, you can include it. And
Okay, thank you. And also, like, if you wanted, like, if a person's interested in building more, like, volunteering experience, do you know where to go to find those sort of resources?
yeah, there's a lot of places. You could go to a school, like if a lot of schools take volunteers or paras or something. You could volunteer at a local nonprofit organization. It could be less formal too. Like when I applied, I like as a high school student, I'm from like a low income school district. And they were cutting a lot of arts programs, and I got a lot of people together to go speak at board meetings and collect statements of support and advocate to keep the arts programs. So it wasn't like a formal role, but it's still advocacy. So if you have something like that, you can also include that.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, of course. And we'll get into the application shortly in just a second. So we'll cover more details too. And then if you are looking ahead career-wise too, we have a Master's of Social Work program too at the School of Social Work. It's a great program. It's nationally ranked and recognized. And if you have your bachelor's degree in social work, you're eligible to complete your master's in social work in a much shorter amount of time and for less money, which is great. So you could earn, typically our MSW program is 2 years or 3 years if you do a part-time track. But if you go into our advanced standing program, which you have to have a BASW for, you could complete it in less than a year, which is great. So 11 months or 16 if you do the part-time program. And you could save as much as $40,000 in tuition. So if you're looking ahead to grad school, this is a great opportunity if you're interested in pursuing a Master of Social Work. Just because the Bachelor will prepare you and you'll get to finish it way faster and enter the workforce faster too. And then lastly, about our program information, in terms of student life here, we have over 15 student groups just at the School of Social Work. Some examples are SWAPI, which is the social workers, Asian Pacific Islander group. So a lot of affinity groups. TAG is our transracial adoptee group. We have OSSW, which is like a council of social workers, like advocating for change at the school. And there's a lot more. So we encourage students to find community here, or if there's not a student group that resonates with you, you can create one. And what's unique about these is that they're not campus wide, they're for social work students. So it pairs down the scope a lot more. So the group will probably be smaller and you'll be able to get to know everybody really well. And everybody there will have that social worker kind of approach, which is cool. If you're a transfer student and you're just coming to UW, you can also and anybody, you can also join, we call them RSOs at UW, registered student organizations. Those are clubs that are university wide. So those are always an option as well. We just also, in addition to that, have School of Social Work specific ones. And like I said, yeah, it's a really tight-knit group on campus since the class sizes are so small. So everybody really gets to build community through those student groups and through small class sizes and the cohort model of going through the program together. So that's a huge benefit. And then also you're on UW Seattle campus, so you have access to all of those amenities still. For transfer students here, in the hub, we have like a transfer commuter student lounge where we have lockers and computers and events. So there's space for you here too. And we also have a lot of research centers at UW. So if you're interested in that, and through our School of Social Work specifically, that's an option through our school as well. So lots of opportunities to get engaged and to meet folks with the same interests as you. Okay, so transitioning into admissions, when you're applying, what we're really looking for as a school is to admit a diverse cohort, and diverse across life experiences, across educational background, across work or social service interests or experience. We're really looking to admit people from a lot of walks of life and with a lot of varying experience and backgrounds. So, and we'll look into this in a little bit, but that's something we really value is lived experience. So just know that maybe if you don't have a lot of social service experience or something like that, that's not the only kinds, the logistical things we'll get into in the application are a good portion, but we're also looking for unique experiences and perspectives. And then we also are looking for a strong social justice perspective. We're looking for students who are really passionate about serving especially marginalized and underrepresented folks, but just their community as a whole, who are able to self-reflect on their ability and who are really passionate about increasing accessibility of resources for whoever you're working with, whether that's students, whether that's veterans, whether that's undocumented folk and family, immigrants and refugees, whoever you're working with. We're looking for folks who are able to acknowledge and appreciate the humanity of everybody, and are really passionate about making sure that they have access to resources that they need. Okay, so at a glance, this is what our application timeline looks like. So at the end of January, our BASW application will open. That'll be available on our website, like on our BASW application page. In February, the UW transfer application is due. So if anybody here is a transfer application or is a transfer applicant, you'll need to apply to both UW as a transfer student generally and to the major, so social work. They're two separate applications run by different offices. So that's why this is here. So if you're a transfer student, you'll need to apply to UW as a transfer student and submit it by February 15. And we'll get into that a little bit more in a second. If you're applying for federal aid or state aid, which is WAFSA, those are due. The UW priority deadline for applying to those is February 28th. Typically, universities have their own priority deadline. So that just a heads up. This may be subject to change if there's significant FAFSA delays like there were last year, but for right now, February 28th. Our BASW major or application is due April 15. So you'll have from late January through April to apply. So a good amount of time there. And then you'll hear back about both, if you're a transfer student, it'll be both decisions. If you're a UW student, it'll be BASW, but you'll hear admissions decisions by late May to mid-June. And then you'll start in fall quarter. All right. So in terms of prerequisite requirements, before starting the program in fall, there are some things that you do need to do first. The first is complete an introductory in sociology course and earn a 2.0 grade or higher. This can be any sociology course. It could be at UW, it could be at your community college or another university, but so it could be sociology 101, 201, 210, whatever you have. Any intro 100 or 200 level course is fine. And same for psychology. We're looking for an intro to psych class with 2.0 or higher. These do not need to be complete. Nothing on this list needs to be complete by the time of application, but just before starting the program in the fall. So if you're taking sociology in spring quarter, that's totally fine. We also require 65 transferable college credits. Transferable meaning there are some kind of credits from community colleges that don't transfer well to the UW. They're considered vocational. So if you have any like trade school credits typically don't transfer well. And then the other thing is if you are at a community college in their human services program or social human services program, like SHS or HS, those often do not transfer well to the UW. It's unfortunate because that's obviously very related to this major, but the university has deemed them to be vocational credits instead of academic credits. So if you're enrolled in one of those programs, let me know and we can chat after or schedule an appointment to chat. But yeah, you'll just need 65 college credits by the time you start the program in fall. And then, which is typically like sophomore standing. Yeah, because this is something you would usually apply for if you're currently a sophomore, to start during your junior year or your third year of university. We also require a minimum 2.0 GPA. And then again, if you are a transfer student, you also will need to complete the UW transfer application, which is open December 15 through February 15. These on the right-hand side are not required, but they are recommended to complete before, just for sake of scheduling and for your ease of access. UW requires a world language. It requires, if you did a world language in high school, it's 3 years of high school, or if it's at the college level, 3/4. So it needs to be of the same language. So like Spanish, for example, you could either have taken 3 years of high school Spanish or 3/4 of that length of Spanish at UW or at your community college. And then we also recommend an intro to statistics course. This is required before entering your senior year of the program, but not for admission. So, but it just may be easier to complete it in advance. Yeah, is it Amelia? Sorry if I butchered that.
Yeah, so it's French, so whatever you said, it's good. For the world language, if you already know another language, do you still need to take your language class?
No, that's a great question. So if like English is your second language or you have a different first language, or UW does allow you to either test to waive out of that, or to completely get out of it. At the end of the session, I can follow up with you via email if you need to go sooner, but I can send you a link to that. But yes, there are exceptions. Like if you lived out of the country and spoke another language for a certain amount of years, this can waive it. Or in cases if you have partial completion, like maybe you took 2 years of Spanish in high school, you can test to make sure that's still adequate and then only take like quarter 3 in college or something. So that's also an option.
Perfect, thank you.
Yeah, of course. All right, so these are the prerequisites to not necessarily to apply, but before starting the program in fall. So maybe you didn't have them complete during the application process and you're admitted. Your admission in fall, like let's say we do accept you, that's still conditional on the completion of these requirements. All right, human service experience. This is another thing we ask about in the application. I know we chatted about it a little bit earlier. And this this is optional in the application. It's not required to have human service experience, but it can help boost your application. So we define relevant human service experience as any experience where you're helping to bring access to resources, to any individuals, families, communities, especially if they're underserved. So this could be volunteer work, or it could be a former job, either way. Some examples are like if you were a program coordinator at a nonprofit, or if you helped event planning, voluntarily, or if you were like a tutor in an after-school program, or things like that, or if you were helping with like veteran services. All of those things would definitely qualify as relevant experience. And so in the application, there's kind of like a little log where you can estimate roughly how many hours a week or a total that you volunteered or worked at each site, and you're able to calculate your total hours. And again, not required, but we use holistic admissions in our school. So like typically one portion of your application is not make or break. So maybe if you have a lower GPA or worried about your writing skills, but you have social service experience, that can help balance it out a bit, or any combo of these things. All right, next is the personal statement. So we have a 2-page personal statement. And basically our goal with this personal statement, it says, write a statement discussing how your personal, academic, or volunteer experiences have led you to social work. So, and then how do your experiences and goals fit with our mission, inspire you to serve others, and inform your career aspirations? You can frame this however you'd like, but basically it's most important to talk about what brought you to social work, whether that's personal experiences, work experience, volunteer, whatever that may be. Why social work? So why do you want to specifically major in social work? And then what you'd like to do with social work. You don't have to have like a 5-year plan or anything, but maybe there's a specific community you want to serve. Like I want to work with immigrant and refugee families or something. Or if there's a specific setting or a specific social justice issue you want to address. Like I want to I want to address DEI work in higher education, or I want to make sure that undocumented folk have increased access to resources or something like that. So kind of like spelling out that timeline of how you got here, why you want to do social work, and any prospects will be most helpful in this essay. And this will just be uploaded as a PDF, 2 pages, double spaced, and is required for the application. The next piece is the short answer question. This is sharing a situation where you've experienced or engaged with a social injustice in some way. This situation could have happened to you or to someone else, and we're curious about how you handled the situation and what you learned from the situation. This is only about 1,500 characters, so like a paragraph basically, and will be typed directly into the application portal. And here we're not looking for perfection, but looking for ability to self-reflect and to demonstrate growth in some way. So maybe there was an experience like where someone was getting like yelled racial slurs at or something at the bus stop, and you were there and you were a bystander and you wished you had stepped in, but you hadn't, or something like that. You can reflect on that and say, this is what I did in the moment and why. And today, with the knowledge I have now, maybe this is what I would do, or moving forward, this ties into my passion for social work or wanting to address this issue. And it could be about an experience that happened to you too. So looking for, again, not perfection, but growth, acknowledgement, and ability to kind of look forward and learn from an experience like that. We also have an optional short answer question in the application. So this is not required, but if you have a GPA that's lower than a 3.0, we encourage you to complete this. And just to talk about just to give any context to your GPA, like a lot of times some students maybe had a hardship that they went through and they dropped out of school for a bit to address that and then came back later, but weren't able to like unenroll, so their grades suffered that quarter. Or some people have a harder transition to university or to college in general, things like that. So if there's any discrepancies along those lines in your transcripts or in your grades, this is your opportunity to discuss that and address it. We're mostly looking for, we don't really care that if you have like, 3.8, 4.0, we're more looking for people who are just academically prepared for the School of Social Work program. So we're not looking for perfection, but we're just wanting to make sure that you're prepared for a full-time course load. And then in admissions, we're also kind of evaluating like, it's kind of on a case-by-case basis or holistic situation as well. So like if we see that you had lower grades in math or engineering classes or something, but you did really well in social sciences, that will be taken into account. So also just keep that in mind, that we're looking at the context too. Like that's very common for a lot of students to maybe not do so well in like STEM related coursework, but do well in social sciences or something like that. But yeah, this is the space for you to use if you would like, and if this applies to you. And then we also require unofficial transcripts to be submitted from any college you've attended. You do not need to include high school credits unless you have a good amount of college credits from there that aren't reflected on your transcripts and at like a community college or at UW. Like if you had AP IB, you can include that. But yeah, if you are a transfer student, include your community college or include your prior university. These can be unofficial. So this can be a PDF version, does not need to be formally sent and can just be uploaded right into the application. And this applies to everybody. So if you're a current UW student, just go to my UW and grab your unofficial transcript and upload it here. As departmental admissions, we don't have access to that on our own. So that's why that's required even if you're currently here. And just make sure it has all the information that we need. This list is on the website, but your name, where you earned that degree. If it doesn't have to be if you earned the degree, if you just have credits from a school, you should still include it. The GPA, credits earned, that kind of thing. And that should just be uploaded to the portal as a PDF file. And then lastly, of the required items is your resume. So we encourage everybody to upload a 1 to 2 or require everybody to upload a 1 to 2 page resume. And this can include the basic stuff. So job experience, volunteer experience, your educational background. You can highlight any leadership opportunities or awards and honors you have, special skills, anything like that. And then be sure to distinguish whether stuff is paid or unpaid. And then roughly include like the hours or dates per month, like this, mostly just the time that you were there in those roles would be helpful. This can just be 1 to 2 pages, PDF format. And we just encourage people to avoid including their full address or photos. And that's to mitigate bias in the review process. We want to make sure that it's a fair review process for everybody. Even though you'll include some information in your application, the reviewers only see the actual materials that you upload. So just avoid a photo or a full address. And this also for the resume doesn't need to be tailored specifically to social work experience. If you have service industry experience, if you're transferring careers or majors, you can include any of those experiences too. It does not have to be just social work related experiences here. Okay, so that was a lot of information about our admissions process. And I know that UW tends to be kind of intimidating and that it's increasingly selective and everything, but I want to ensure that you know that our values as a school and our admissions process and as a school of social work are reflected in our admissions process, just as they are in our mission statement. So this is just a snapshot of what our 2024 BASW cohort looked like. These are not based on quotas. This is not the same every year. So it'll vary depending on how many applications we get, who applies each year. But this is what this year's cohort looked like. We admitted 52 folks. That's pretty common. We have a 72% acceptance rate, and that's also pretty average for our program. I'd say in the last 5 years, the acceptance rate has varied anywhere between 60 to 75% on average. About half of our students are transfer students. So if you're looking to transfer, you certainly will not be the only one by any means. As you can see, our cohort is very diverse across gender and across race. Well over half of our students in this cohort were students of color. Also, over half of our students are first-generation college students. And And then down here, you'll notice the average age of our students this year was 23. That's also pretty common. So not everybody is coming to college straight out of high school. Pretty common for folks to have taken some gap years or to have pursued a different career and are now doing a career change, things like that. Our average GPA of this cohort was 3.45, but again, our minimum GPA requirement to apply is 2.0. So don't be discouraged by that, I would say. That's why we give space in the application to address your GPA if it's lower, but this is just what it looked like this year. And then also the average service hours, again, we don't require service experience, but this average is significantly brought up by those who have worked in similar social work roles for a long time and are now like returning to school to get the degree. So if you don't have social service experience or don't have a lot, don't stress about that number. And then a lot of students also are eligible for financial aid in our program too. The Pell Grant is a specific Washington grant, but there are many other financial aid opportunities. And 90% of our students were in-state, which is fairly common. Most folks in our School of Social Work are in-state students, but international students and out-of-state students are also welcome to apply. All right. If you are a transfer student here, again, just a reminder to complete the UW transfer application first. That is separate from our BASW application and it is due sooner. So I recommend completing it first. It'll open in December, close in February, and it is required for admission, both that application and the BASW. Our BASW application will open in January. If you're a transfer student, on our website, and I can link it after this formal PowerPoint is over too, we have a transfer equivalency guide. So for all Washington State community colleges. So if you're transferring from Green River College, for example, you can go see all of the courses at Green River and see how each one of those transfers to UW. So that's a great resource to see how your credits will transfer and where. If you're taking mostly just a direct transfer agreement, AA, DTA, or just a general associate's degree, most of those would probably transfer unless it's vocational. So if you're taking, English 101 and History 200 or something, you'll likely be fine. Our decisions will be sent out in May and June for admissions decisions, and you should receive your UW transfer decision at the same time as your bachelor's in social work, or at least within a day or two of each other. They'll be similar. And then about half of our students, again, are transfer students, so you will not be alone in our program. It's very common. I was a transfer student, so happy to answer questions about that too. All right, last slide, I promise. And then financial aid. If you're looking to fund your education at UW, there are quite a few options. First, I recommend that everybody complete FAFSA or WAFSA. WAFSA is the Washington State version of FAFSA for those who typically aren't eligible for FAFSA. You need to apply to FAFSA or WAFSA for every year you intend to enroll in higher education and receive financial aid. So if you applied for your first year, you need to apply for it every year that you're going to be in college. Keep in mind that February deadline for the priority UW deadline. We also have the Husky Promise program at UW, which is great. UW automatically analyzes your FAFSA or WAFSA for consideration. So if your income, your household income or your need calculated by FAFSA or WAFSA, is below a certain threshold, your tuition will be 100% covered by grants. This actually happened to me and I didn't even know about the program, but I was a low income student and I filed my FAFSA and I was eligible to receive to be a Husky Promise student. So my tuition was covered by the UW, and then the things I had to pay for were just fees and then cost of living, external expenses. So definitely, but to be eligible, you do need to fill out FAFSA or WAFSA. So definitely do that. There's also the Martin Achievement Scholarship, which is a transfer academic scholarship. I'm happy to chat with folks after if they have questions about that. And then we have departmental scholarships for continuing students at our School of Social Work. So once you're admitted to the School of Social Work when you're a junior, you can apply for certain departmental scholarships that will help aid the tuition in your senior year, so your second year of the program. And I always encourage folks to seek out external scholarships. UW has an entire office dedicated to financial aid and scholarships, so that's a great resource. If you're a lot of job opportunity or job placements have scholarship opportunities, or if you're working with a nonprofit or an organization, a lot of those value higher education and can help fund. And then we also have, I should have written this out, but CTAP is another funding opportunity at our School of Social Work. It's a traineeship. So if you're interested in, it's called the Child Welfare Training and Advancement Program. So if you're interested in a career in child welfare, this is a great program to help you get experience in child welfare in the program. Your practicum site will be at Department of Children, Youth, and Families. And you commit to working in child welfare for a couple years after graduation in exchange for tuition coverage. So we call it a conditional grant. So you get tuition coverage on the condition that you commit to working in child welfare for a couple years after graduation. That's for seniors in the program, so you don't need to know or apply to it or anything at this point in time or before you enter the program, but it is an opportunity that we do have here. So just kind of planting that seed now. Okay, so that was a ton of information, but I'd like to open it up to any questions that folks have. I can answer questions about UW, Seattle, the transfer experience, student life, the application, the program, anything like that. And if folks have to go, let me just put this up. Again, thank you for being here. I'm Shyla. I do BASW admissions, outreach, and recruitment. So catch us on social media. That'll likely be me, or at an upcoming event. Feel free to reach out to us too. We offer virtual advising appointments. So I'm happy to hop on a Zoom call with folks and walk through specific questions or information that you have. You can just email us in admissions. We have a mailing list that you can sign up for on our website to receive like notifications about cool things happening. And then our next event will be on December 5th. It'll also be a virtual event, and it's a careers in social work panel. So if you're kind of on the fence or not sure what you would do with social work, this might be a good event to attend just to learn more about what all the possibilities. And you'll hear from alumni and from career social workers. Okay. I'll leave this slide up for just a second, but feel free. Thank you all again for coming. And I'm happy to open the floor to any questions that folks have.